The city of lights and shadows. Paris. The city that glows with romance, laughter, and art. But beneath its beauty, in the late 1980s, the City of Lights cast shadows darker than anyone could imagine. In those narrow cobblestone streets and aging apartments, a silent predator began his reign of terror. He didn't strike in alleys or dark corners. He came to the front door, polite, smiling, and young. His victims weren't strangers to the world. They were the elderly women who had lived through wars, rebuilt their city, and believed that kindness still existed. But in their final moments, they would come face to face with a charming killer whose smile hid the soul of a monster. His name was Thierry Paulin, and history would remember him as the old lady's killer, le tueur de vieilles dames, the predator who turned Paris into a hunting ground. Whispers of death. It began in 1984, with the discovery of 80-year-old Marie Chatelain found dead in her apartment. She lay beside her bed, her face bruised, her jewelry gone, her neck showing the unmistakable marks of strangulation. At first, detectives assumed a simple burglary gone wrong. A tragedy, yes, but not unusual in a city of millions. But within weeks, another woman was found, then another, each case almost identical. Elderly, living alone, found lifeless, possessions missing, doors unlocked. Police files began to fill with names: Madeleine, Geneviève, Colette, women who had survived so much in life only to die in silence in their own homes. By 1985, the pattern was undeniable. Someone was studying these women, earning their trust before killing them. Some were found in their nightgowns, others beside unfinished meals, suggesting they had been interrupted mid-conversation. The city began to whisper. The elderly were terrified. Families told their mothers never to open the door for anyone. But in Paris, loneliness can be cruel. When a kind young man offered to help carry groceries or fix a broken lamp, it was difficult to say no. The killer's method was intimate. He didn't shoot or stab. He strangled, using his hands, a scarf, or sometimes the very belt his victim was wearing. He wanted to watch life fade away. It was personal. It was deliberate. And he always left with something. A trinket, a ring, a watch. Trophies that meant nothing to him but everything to those who loved them. A city in fear. As bodies continued to appear, panic spread across Paris. Newspapers printed the headline, "The Old Lady's Killer Strikes Again." The public demanded answers, but the police had none. There was no forced entry, no fingerprints, no blood trails. The killer was clean, methodical, almost surgical. He knew how to blend in, how to leave nothing behind. Some called him the Phantom of the Elderly, a ghost who moved unseen through the city's aging buildings. Detectives, under immense pressure, investigated hundreds of suspects. Petty thieves, former caretakers, even relatives, all questioned, all released. The pattern was too random to fit a single suspect, yet too consistent to be coincidence. Each crime scene felt rehearsed. Whoever this man was, he was intelligent, and he understood how people trusted appearances. Meanwhile, Paris changed. Windows once open to let in summer air were now locked. Markets became places of paranoia. Neighbors looked at one another with suspicion. And for the elderly, fear replaced comfort. To open a door became an act of faith, one that could cost a life. The double life of Thierry Paulin. Behind the facade of fear, another life thrived. In the smoky glow of Paris's underground cabaret clubs, a young man was rising to fame. Thierry Paulin, born in 1963 in Fort-de-France, Martinique, was known for his beauty, confidence, and grace. He came to Paris as a teenager, chasing dreams of glamour. By day, he worked as a waiter. By night, he became a performer, a drag artist admired for his charm and energy. But beneath the sparkle and laughter lived resentment. Paulin carried anger for the poverty he grew up in, the racism he faced, and the rejection he felt from a society obsessed with appearances. He wanted to be rich, adored, and powerful, but he was broke and invisible. That frustration soon twisted into something darker. With his lover, Jean-Thierry Mathurin, he began robbing elderly women, convincing himself it was just survival. But theft turned into torture, and robbery turned into murder. The thrill of control was addictive. As the years passed, Paulin's two worlds drifted further apart. The performer who dazzled audiences, and the predator who strangled his victims. He lived in luxury with stolen money, wearing gold jewelry taken from the very women he had killed. In photos from that time, he looks elegant, stylish, almost innocent. But behind those eyes lived rage, greed, and emptiness, the addiction of control. Killing became a compulsion. Paulin no longer murdered for money. He murdered for the feeling it gave him. In his twisted logic, taking life was power, and the elderly were his easiest prey. "They've lived long enough," he once told an acquaintance. "I'm just taking what's left." Those words revealed a man detached from empathy, a predator who saw human life as currency. Police later learned that after each killing, Paulin would party through the night, drinking champagne, using cocaine, laughing under the same city lights that illuminated his victims' funeral candles. The duality was staggering. He could perform, smile, and charm strangers hours after committing unspeakable acts. Psychologists would later describe him as a textbook sociopath, intelligent, manipulative, and void of conscience. By 1987, the number of victims had risen to over 20, each one elderly, each one trusting, each one dying in silence. But as the killings grew, so did his recklessness. And soon, the predator would make a mistake. The break in the case. In late 1987, Thierry Paulin's health began to decline. He was diagnosed with HIV, an incurable disease at the time, and it began to consume him physically and mentally. But instead of stopping, he became even more desperate. He needed money for drugs, for distractions, for denial. During one attack, he lost control and left his victim alive. The elderly woman, traumatized but breathing, described her attacker in chilling detail. Young, elegant, and disturbingly polite. That witness became the turning point. Police connected her testimony with pawnshop records, showing stolen jewelry from earlier murders being sold by a man matching Paulin's description. Surveillance confirmed it. When officers finally moved in, they found him at his apartment surrounded by luxury, designer clothes, cash, cocaine, and items belonging to his victims. When arrested, Thierry Paulin didn't fight. He simply looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "You finally found me." The confession. What followed was one of the most haunting interrogations in French criminal history. Sitting calmly across from investigators, Paulin described his crimes with eerie composure. "Yes," he said, "I killed them." He listed their names, the streets, even the teacups they drank from before dying. He confessed not out of guilt but boredom. When asked why, he replied with a smirk, "Because I could." Those three words froze the room. Detectives noted his tone, not angry, not afraid, simply detached. He didn't see his victims as people. They were moments, events, numbers. He talked about strangling as if discussing a routine chore. When asked if he regretted it, he shrugged. "Regret?" he said. "No, they were old." The horror of his indifference shocked even seasoned officers. For the first time, they saw not just a killer, but a man entirely devoid of empathy. Psychologists later compared his demeanor to that of a cold performer describing a script. And perhaps, in his mind, that's exactly what life had become. A performance where he was both actor and executioner. Death before justice. Thierry Paulin was charged with multiple counts of murder, but fate denied his victims their day in court. His health deteriorated rapidly. By 1989, the once flamboyant young man was unrecognizable. Frail, silent, dying of AIDS in a hospital bed. He never faced trial. He never apologized. He died at 26, his crimes unresolved, his legacy sealed in infamy. For the families of his victims, justice felt incomplete. Their mothers and grandmothers had been taken by a man who walked free until his body failed him. Newspapers called his death an ending without closure. To the people of Paris, it was a strange mix of relief and frustration. The monster was gone, but so were the answers. Anatomy of a monster. Experts dissected Paulin's psyche for years. trying to understand how a man who danced under bright lights could murder in cold blood. Some said he was driven by greed and addiction. Others saw deep psychological rage, the result of racism, rejection, and internalized self-hatred. But beneath all theories, one truth remained. He lacked empathy. Paulin's life reflected the darkness within modern society. A world obsessed with appearance, indifferent to loneliness, and blind to quiet suffering. His victims represented a generation forgotten by the city they once built, and his murders became symbols of that neglect. He was not just killing for thrill. He was feeding on a world that had already abandoned them. The aftermath. When the killing stopped, the fear didn't. For years, elderly Parisians lived with paranoia. Doors stayed locked. Kindness became suspicion. The story of Thierry Paulin turned into a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil doesn't always come from shadows. Sometimes it smiles, offers to help, and asks politely to come inside. The apartments where the crimes happened were eventually sold, repainted, forgotten. But the memories remain. To this day, people in the 18th arrondissement still whisper about the years when a killer walked among them. Not a monster from nightmares, but a handsome young man with a warm smile. His name became taboo, a reminder of how close evil can be when disguised as charm. Evil behind the smile. Thierry Paulin's story is not only about murder, it's about illusion. He was proof that evil can look beautiful, that cruelty can wear elegance like a costume. He danced, he laughed, he lived, and between each breath he destroyed. His victims trusted him because he seemed kind, because he looked human, but inside he was hollow. A man who mistook suffering for art and murder for meaning. Even in death, Paulin remains an enigma. Not the monster hiding in the dark, but the one standing under the lights, blending in with everyone else. And perhaps that's what makes his story truly terrifying. He wasn't an outsider. He was one of us. In every great city, there are faces we trust. The neighbor, the performer, the man who smiles and holds the door open. We never know what darkness hides behind that smile until it's too late. And in the case of the old lady's killer, Paris learned the cost of trust. The lights of Montmartre still glow today. The Seine still shimmers at night, and the laughter of the city still echoes. But if you listen closely, beyond the music and romance, you can still hear a whisper, the faint echo of footsteps in a hallway, the soft click of a lock, the ghostly reminder of a man who hunted the innocent. The predator of Paris is gone, but his shadow still lingers. Because once, in the heart of the most beautiful city in the world, Thierry Paulin smiled, and death smiled with him.